What happens when familial loyalty conflicts with moral integrity? Tragic tale of the Danaids from Greek mythology delves into this profound question. It tells the story of 50 daughters caught between the demands of their father, Danaus, and their own conscience. Fleeing from a forced marriage with their 50 cousins, the Danaids face a harrowing choice on their wedding night: to follow their father's command to murder their husbands, or to defy him and face the consequence. This ancient myth, rich with themes of duty, betrayal, and justice, explores the complexities of human nature and the far-reaching impacts of our choices. The story of the Danaids begins with a profound family conflict rooted in ancient Greek mythology. Danaus and Aegyptus, twin sons of King Belus of Egypt, find themselves at odds after their father's death. Danaus, inheriting the kingdom of Libya, fathers 50 daughters, known collectively as the Danaids. Aegyptus, ruling Egypt, has 50 sons. Driven by a desire to unite the two families, Aegyptus proposes that his sons marry Danaus's daughters. Danaus is deeply suspicious of his brother's intentions. Fearing that Aegyptus seeks to usurp his power or harm his daughters, Danaus decides to flee. He instructs his daughters to escape with him across the sea to Argos, their ancestral homeland. The Danaids and Danaus undertake a perilous journey, eventually reaching Argos, where they seek the protection of King Pelasgus. Pelasgus, sympathetic to their plight and impressed by their noble lineage, offers them refuge and protection. However, the story takes a dark turn when Aegyptus and his sons follow them to Greece, demanding that the marriages proceed as initially proposed. Faced with this ultimatum, Danaus is cornered into a dreadful decision. He reluctantly agrees to the marriages, but secretly instructs his daughters to kill their husbands on their wedding night. To carry out this grim plan, each daughter is provided with a dagger. This part of the story sets up a critical moral and ethical dilemma. Danaus's actions, driven by fear and mistrust, put his daughters in a horrifying position. They are torn between filial duty and the moral repugnance of murder. The narrative also highlights the oppressive nature, patriarchal control, as the Danaids have little agency in the unfolding events, forced to comply with their father's commands despite their potential personal objections. The conflict between Danaus and Aegyptus and the subsequent flight to Argos set the stage for the tragic events that followed. This initial part of the story introduces key themes of power, trust, and the consequences of familial strife. The Danaids, caught in the crossfire of their father's and uncle's ambitions, become central figures in a narrative that explores the complexities of duty, loyalty, and moral choice. The story of the Danaids reaches a tragic and dramatic climax on the night of the mass wedding, a pivotal moment that would define their fates and etch their tale into the annals of Greek mythology. Bound by their father's grim instructions, 49 of the Danaids carry out the horrific act of murdering their husband. This deed is both a desperate attempt to preserve their autonomy and a chilling act of familial obedience. Each daughter uses the dagger provided by Danaus to kill her spouse, premeditated crime that reflects the deep-seated fear and distrust instilled in them by their father. However, the story takes a poignant turn with Hypermnestra, the eldest of the Danaids. Unlike her sisters, Hypermnestra chooses to defy her father's orders, driven by compassion and love for her husband Lynceus. Recognizing Lynceus's innocence and integrity, she spares his life, a decision that marks her as both courageous and virtuous. Her refusal to commit murder stands in stark contrast to her sister's action, highlighting themes of mercy and moral integrity. Hypermnestra's act of mercy leads to significant consequences. Danaus, upon discovering her disobedience, is enraged and threatens to punish her severely. However, Lynceus and Hypermnestra manage to escape, seeking refuge from her father's wrath. This escape underscores Hypermnestra's transformation from a passive victim of her father's will to an active agent of her destiny, choosing love and righteousness over blind obedience. The aftermath of this tragic night sees the Danaids condemned to a particularly haunting punishment in the afterlife. According to myth, the 49 sisters who carried out the murders are sentenced to eternally fill a bottomless vessel with water. This Sisyphean task symbolizes their unending guilt and the futility of their crime, serving as a metaphor for the consequences of their actions. This punishment, often depicted as carrying water in leaky jars, reflects the eternal and inescapable nature of their guilt and penance. Meanwhile, the story of Hypermnestra and Lynceus takes a different path. Lynceus, determined to avenge the murder of his brothers, eventually kills Danaus, bringing a bloody end to the cycle of vengeance. However, Hypermnestra and Lynceus go on to become the progenitors of a new line of Argive kings, their descendants including notable figures such as Perseus. This lineage not only redeems Hypermnestra's defiance, but also cements her legacy as a key figure in Greek mythology. This tragic tale, filled with themes of betrayal, punishment, and redemption, continues to resonate through literature and art, offering insights into the human condition and the complexities of familial and ethical obligations. In the afterlife, the 49 Danaids who obeyed Danaus's command are condemned to an endless and futile task, carrying water in leaky vessels. This eternal punishment, often depicted in art and literature, symbolizes the fruitlessness of their actions and their inescapable guilt. Conclusion: the Danaids' legacy, especially through Hypermnestra's act of compassion, provides a nuanced view of redemption and the enduring impact of individual choices on history and myth.